for example, if that data is vague, if it's just because someone says, oh, you suck at football. Nobody gave you like a specific thing, like you kick with the wrong leg or you don't run fast enough. They didn't give you anything specific, so you can conclude, okay, I take in negative feedback that is based on no good reasoning.
But Rowan, even when it is factual, so even when you are not that good at football, or maybe when you're not that good in taking in feedback, so even when it is true, then there is a first step before you can be able to manage this.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening.
Yep. Good morning.
My name is Rowen Dekkers, and next to me is Gerard Dekkers.
Yes.
And it is time for another Unlimited Potential podcast, episode 4 today.
Yeah, and a very special episode today.
Yeah, because we are, for the first time, we are talking about a submitted topic. So for the people, because we don't worry, you haven't really missed that much. We do ask it, obviously, in our emails. We also tell people, like, hey, if you have an idea, if you have a suggestion for us to talk about, or someone you want us to talk to, maybe for a session as a guest, you can always send us an email. It's also in every mail that we send out to our follower list. But we don't have like Instagram yet for Unlimited Power or Unlimited Potential.
No.
And we don't have a Twitter yet. So normally people would ask it there. But for the people that know me, Rowen Dekkers, I also make a lot of content. So I have some social media following. So I asked on my Instagram, I asked people that knew me and knew that we do this podcast. I asked them, what are things that they are struggling with? I just asked people, literally put a question in my story. You can do that, and then people can type in an answer, and you'll see it on your Instagram story. So I asked, what's the struggle that you're currently struggling with?
Yeah.
And we got a lot of answers. We wrote them all down, so we have a list that we're keeping track of, where we see all those, and then we can pick one. And obviously, we first want to pick, and we wanted to pick a subject that, in our opinion, is a little bit more general, so most people can relate to it or at least get something out of it. For the first one, but we took a very interesting one. You have it on your screen because you really prepared for today. You got your iPad out and everything.
I'm really prepared.
What was it again? Literally, the submission that was sent in.
It was a very interesting question about imagining that people can think negatively about you and making that thought real, and so back away without saying why.
Yeah, so the idea is that this person basically told themselves, through whatever means, that other people do not like him or her. But there's no like grounded reason for that. And then that inner voice that told themselves that basically said like, let's just back away from this and let's just not talk to them anymore. And let's basically act on that negative thought.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to this feeling.
Yeah, I think a lot can. So a lot of the time we do definitely tell ourselves, especially when you're in like a negative mind space, we tell ourselves things that are not based on facts. They're based on interpretations of reality, or we hone down on very specific small things that do not sketch the entire picture at all, that are just a little part, but we focus in on it, we hone in on it, and we let that decide basically our next step from that negative space, and then we create a mind reality, so to say. That
but in this case, obviously, it was about negative connotation, so that you think that people think negative about you, and for some reason, that perception of negativity touches something inside of you. So you're being affected by this perception of reality, by this perception of how people think about what you do or who you are.
Yeah, for a reason, it feels like something you maybe even relate to, because you're like, yeah, you want to believe it, of course, because if it would have been something that you definitely couldn't stand behind, where you're like, nah, this can't be true, then you wouldn't believe it.
No, this is, and what very cool is, and obviously, I run a private practice on every Friday where I see people in my practice, and this is one of the questions I get a lot also in my practice. That's why we are going to
as a psychologist,
take this as a psychologist, and that's why we're going to take this subject or this question first, because
I think it's a very
I can
good
relate to it, because a lot of people also come to me in my practice and talk about this, and very often we need to analyze the question, and that's what I'm doing here first. So this question mainly has three parts. So it is that you imagine in your head what other people think. So you create a picture about the mindset of somebody else. So that's the first thing that happens. Then, and that's in this question, then you're going to make it real for yourself. And you do this yourself.
So first thing is they filled in basically the thoughts of the other person, because they were like, they probably don't like me, or they are conscious about it, because they literally send us this obviously in a way where they said like, okay, I am doing this. So they are conscious that they're doing this and that it's not a good thing to do. They know that of themselves. But it starts, like you said, step one is they fill it in for other people.
Yeah, they
what
imagine.
They think. They imagine it.
They imagine.
But then they make it a reality for themselves.
And then, for some reason we don't know yet, they make it a reality in their own mind. So they are going to believe what they think other people think. So they're going to make it a reality in their own heads. And then, based on that reality, they're going to take action. And in this case, the action was backing away.
They to make it very, very simple. I always like to make things simple with like words, specific words. But to make that simple, they start with an interpretation.
Yes.
They make that a mental reality.
They make it a mental,
but then they send it back and created a physical reality out of that mental reality.
Not only a physical reality, they let their actions be guided by that.
Yeah. So those actions created as a physical reality.
Created. So they create a reality in their head, and that reality is a trigger to conduct some kind of behavior.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this person is quite aware of the fact that this is not a good thing to do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent this in. They want to work on this, but it keeps being interesting to me to see that as a flat fact, how that works. So skipping the middle part of this whole thing, in the end, that is an interpretation. Is the beginning. It starts at the interpretation, and the result in the end is that it is a reality created by you based on the thing that you've actually feared at the beginning. So it's like it starts as an interpretation, but you make it a reality. Just skipping the middle parts here, right? So just like beginning end.
Yes.
It began as an interpretation, and interpretations are still so like flexible and still so open and
what a lot of people experience is that they feel that their behavior is being guided by something that maybe is not real. Because they do realize that they are interpreting and that they are imagining something that somebody else thinks about them.
Yeah,
so they realize this, and still they find themselves behaving according to that interpretation, and most of them judge themselves a little bit for that. So
because you want to make a reality. Like so the result is something that's, I think, in a way inevitable. Like you want to make a reality, and I think this actually ties in with a subject that we still want to talk about in a future episode, which is the currently trending topic, trending problem for our generation, that we all want security. Everybody wants wants answers to everything. Everybody wants safety, and they want to know reliability, safety. That's what everybody wants. No, everybody's like afraid of uncertainties and of things you don't know. So I'm not going to go into that right now because it's for a future episode, but bringing that to this, it's only logical that the brain, even though it's an interpretation, that the brain wants to create a reality out of that, because we want something to
tangible.
Yeah, we want to make something out of that interpretation.
Yeah.
And then we come to what I think you were going to start about, the fact that why our brain initially said, yes, this is the thing I'm going to believe. Like the thought comes in, the interpretation comes in, and something in the brain said, the little message came in, and the brain received it, and we're like, what do we have here? People don't like you. Yeah, I think this is one that we have to believe. Let's put this into production, and let's...
Yeah, but it's never like this, that people don't like me. It's always that person.
Yeah, that person
doesn't like me. Or that person doesn't like me. And so we need to discover ourselves where this episode,
I know something good is coming because you're doing this with your hands. And you know when someone like rubs their fingers, you know, like, now they're thinking. Now they're really thinking about something.
So you absorb that negative interpretation. You absorb it, and you absorb it for a reason. And I don't know what exactly the reason is why this person is making the interpretation that there is something negative in the mind of these other people.
So
we don't know this yet.
Not yet.
But we know one thing for sure. He believes that there is a negative connotation or opinion about him or her.
And I think that's a very healthy thing to think about and to go through, whoever you are, wherever you are. It's a good thing to go through as a personal journey, I guess, to think about what negative things about yourself you believe. What are the things, if someone were to say, I don't know, I'm just gonna spitball a couple, you're ugly, you're bad at tennis, you're bad at football, whatever, you would be a bad model, you're bad at shaving, the mustache is ugly,
all kind of stuff.
A whole list. You can name every insecurity, but for everybody's good, if you like have something where you're like, I always feel insecure about that. What is the part that you believe, and why do you actually believe it within yourself? Like, obviously, everybody can say because they said that. No, but why do you believe that that when they say it?
That's very interesting, and there is a very good explanation why this maybe becomes bigger in your mind. When most of the time, when you think somebody has a negative opinion about you or something about you, type of behavior or whatever, there is a resonation within your own opinion about yourself.
Yeah.
So there is something inside of you that is also thinking the same thought about yourself.
Yeah.
And then it's almost as, oh, I'm caught now. I'm like, they got me.
Oh, we're going to imposter syndrome territory here? Or?
No, well, a little bit. That's a very popular term.
Yeah.
But the psychological process is that most people avoid pain. We know we are pain avoiders.
I think that like most people is even an understatement. I think everybody, right?
So we avoid pain. That's what we do, and we do everything we can to avoid that. And having a realization that something is maybe not that well developed in yourself could be negative. You try and hide it.
Or well, that's a way of doing it, but you basically want it to be gone. And obviously you could work on it, but I think a lot of people indeed choose for the simple option, which could be hiding, because that's like, okay, just quickly hide it, shove it on the rug.
Yeah, exactly. And then somebody says, oh no, I see this. And then you think, I tried to hide it, but I didn't succeed here. And then you don't even see maybe the positive things people also see in you.
Yeah, because you're actively trying to hide something.
Exactly.
And
so
that
it becomes larger.
Yeah.
It becomes larger because it resonates. Somebody else sees something, you think, okay, they are correct. That's true, maybe a little bit. So then it becomes bigger. And then your mind, it's like your mind makes it bigger for you, and that creates that reality.
And it makes it like the part where you say it makes it bigger. It's such an interesting part because I think it ties into a saying that probably everybody heard, and that's just, water the plants that you want to grow. So if you're going to water a plant, it's going to grow. If you're going to give it fresh soil, it's going to grow. So same with these kind of things. If you have a negative thought, if you have, for example, that thought and you want to keep that a secret, but somebody found out and you got to hide it better, you're giving it attention. You're still giving it water. And everything you give water is going to grow. So if you're going to give something negative water, it's going to grow into bigger negative because those thoughts are going to grow. The emotions tied to it are going to grow. Everything you give attention is going to grow in a way. So, if you're going to give attention to that kind of stuff, those thoughts are going to grow. That doesn't make them more true or less true or more grounded or more a reality. They just take up more space because they're growing, because you're giving them water. So, every reality is a reality.
Every reality is a reality. That's obviously true, Rowen. And the inconvenient part is the third step here. That reality that you create in your mind based on the opinion of somebody else, of the perceived opinion of somebody else, is a trigger for behavior. So the whole process is not into a direction you want to move your life into. So you still are in a mode where the outer world is controlling not only your mind, but is also controlling even your actions. So the outer world is controlling your mind and even the connected actions.
But we can reverse this process.
Yes, that's the good part.
20 minutes in, we're getting to the good part already. This is going to be a juicy episode.
Yeah, and short, I hope. So how can you reverse this? And this is pretty tricky because it needs some initial thinking before you start again and watch the opinion of something of other people about you. So what do you need to do first? If you feel that you are sustainable about getting being influenced by a specific reaction, you need to be aware what that is. So
and why you're a realization of why also you're believing that is very important, because you need to be aware about everything. Why are you believing, for example, if somebody says something, I think we talked about this earlier as well already a little bit, we mentioned it, but why do you believe that when somebody says that you're bad at, I don't know, let's just take a random one, why do you believe that somebody says you're bad at football? For example, why do you believe that? Did they give you constructive thoughts? Or you need to realize why your brain is picking up on things as well, why your brain is collecting certain data. Because, for example, if that data is vague, if it's just because someone says, oh, you suck at football, so you can conclude it's not specific, it's not concrete, nobody gave you like a specific thing, like you kick with the wrong leg, or you don't run fast enough, or you have the wrong shoes. They didn't give you anything specific, so you can conclude, okay, I take in negative feedback that is based on no factualities, no good reasoning.
But Rowen, even when it is factual, so even when you are not that good at football, or maybe when you're not that good in taking in feedback, or maybe when you're not so good in handling difficult situations and you get angry all the time. So even when it is true, then there is a first step before you can be able to manage this. So there's a first step, and the first step is to realize that what is going to break when you accept that you find it difficult to take in feedback. So what is your issue? So in this question the person asked in the group, imagining that people think negatively about me and making that real, that thought, so I back away without saying why. So there's a very quick conclusion about what to do after people think negatively. So what's going to break inside of you when somebody thinks something negative about you?
Why is there that whole alarm system in your head?
Exactly.
In place, because that's it, right? He has an alarm system in place in his head for whenever somebody would not like him, but that alarm basically already gets triggered by the thought of people not liking him.
Exactly.
Right now, but like we need to get to the core of that alarm system basically. What is going to break? Let's think about what would happen if people actually wouldn't like you.
So it's not a thought, it is factual.
It is it's the most, it's the most wonderful. Just to get in on that before we continue, it's the most wonderful quote I've ever heard about doing the thing that you love. I don't know the person who said it. Unfortunately, I forgot the name, but they said there's always going to be someone that hates you for the thing that you do. So you might as well make sure that you like the thing that you do.
Yeah.
Which is like that changed when I heard that for the first time. That completely shifted that was a paradigm shift for me. That was a complete paradigm shift for me. That was such a hard reality for me to, where it like twisted my brain, where I was like, you're right.
Yeah, it's a very interesting remark. And it is so interesting because when you accept who you are, nobody can have any negative impact on who you are. So if you...
No impact. Good choice of words indeed. No negative impact on you.
Exactly. So when you have... when you completely accept who you are, then any negative thought of anybody else has no impact on you. You know?
And so when people do, you gotta go back to the question that we were talking about. What's gonna break? What's gonna break?
And nothing can be broken by words or thought from somebody else.
No, we're letting it break us.
We give the power. We give the power to a negative mindset to the world outside of ourselves. So we give people the power to create a negative mindset in ourselves, which then also creates a dysfunctional behavior.
Let's not forget that even if you're struggling with this for a long time already, and I know most of us had this moment where we say like, somebody asks you like, why is this hurting you so much? And people say, I just really can't take this, and I really can't have it when people say that to me or do this, or it just hurts me, or I really can't take it. Let's not forget that sentence started with I really can't take this kind of work. So that puts again the action with you. You can't do that yet. That doesn't make it the fault of the other thing.
No.
You said it correctly. It's one of those sentences that people say correctly, but they don't really realize what they're saying. They say, I can't take it, but they don't realize that they're saying that they are doing that the responsibility is with them, that it's not someone that did that to them, but, you know, it's... They are creating that reality about themselves based on a perception of what somebody else maybe is thinking. And if you realize that this is the process you're in, you're halfway. You're halfway. And the other half, obviously, is that when you are being motivated to act in a specific way based on this dysfunctional mindset, just say stop for a moment. Just wait for a moment. Count to 30 or 20 or whatever, or wait maybe a day before you act, before you realize why you are creating this reality in your own mind and what the problem is. What's the problem underneath, and what is the reasons why you're creating this new reality? Is it based on facts? Do you agree with those facts? Why do you agree with those facts? There's a lot of questions that you can go through first that on its own already takes time. Like even if you weren't gonna wait to cool off, it's still gonna take time to answer those questions and really think about it. But doing that in an emotional state, because most of the time we are, I think our body maybe also has an initial response, an intuitive response that aligns with this, where our body already says like, I want to get out of this situation. But I think we don't channel that in the right way. So we obviously, because we are pain avoiders,
yes,
we want to get out of a painful situation. Yes. So let's take it out of the imagination part for a sec. Somebody actually said to you that you suck at something. It hurts you. And it does do something to you. You're not trained at this yet, so it still hurts you. It still affects who you are. You either react angry to that person, or you want to run away, or you want to make them mad, or maybe you even want to tell them that what they are saying is you can't say that. You can't say something like that to a person.
No.
While in theory, in the core, those are all things that you say to avoid pain. You want to get that situation sorted and gone.
Yes.
Either by shutting the other person up, winning the discussion, or running away from the discussion. It's a kind of fight, flight, freeze kind of situation. But it's funny that even then, because you see it a lot, people, especially the excuse of someone saying to another person, you are not allowed to say that to me. It's such an interesting thing because it comes from a place of wanting to get away from a certain situation. But it is so far away from solving the problem. Yep. Shutting someone up is so far away from actually fixing the problem.
But it is not that difficult to understand why this is happening this period of time, because of the, we're not going to bash all social media, but but obviously we are being influenced by all the likes and the appraisals or the etc. about what you do, for example, on social media.
The amount of likes and followers almost dictates who is most believable of everybody.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems at this moment of time, because there is not a real interaction with a person who likes something of you or dislikes something of you.
No, there's no back and forth.
No.
No.
Still, you need to realize that you are accepting that opinion in yourself. So your mind accepts the opinion, or maybe even perceived opinion about you. So then you create your own reality and your action follows. So the first thing to do is to make a decision. It's a very simple decision. It's very simple.
It's good to say that's a simple decision, because I also know that a lot of listeners probably have some problems with making decisions.
Yeah.
So it's good that it's an easy...
But it's a very simple decision. And please listen carefully, because if you are able to make this decision, it will help you tremendously. And the decision is that you stop being a slave to the opinion of somebody else.
Sounds almost like a statement for like a statement that somebody makes, like, are we gonna stop being a slave? But
every time.
It's a serious question. You need to.
It is.
I think I know what you're gonna say. You ask every single person in your practice this.
Yeah.
Probably. You have asked me from I don't know how young I was. I was like this big for the people at YouTube. They can see I was like this big when he already started asking me this question, I think.
Yeah.
But it is a good question, and it's a pretty simple question. But what the hard part is not the question. Is the following through is what the hard part is. You need to keep yourself accountable. If you're going to say, for example, I am not going to be a slave to someone else's opinion or someone else's reality.
Yeah, the outer world.
The outer world. I'm not going to be a slave to that. You need to follow through with that. And one of the things, which is definitely something that ties in with this, that a lot of people have problems with, it also means that you can't shift the blame on anybody else anymore. It's all on you.
Definitely. So people say to me, okay, Gerard, this is a very simple statement, a very simple decision, but I just can't do it. And then they don't make that decision because they have an opinion about themselves that they can't do it. And then the only thing I say, it doesn't matter what happens in the next minute or the next half an hour or the next 2 days or the next week. The decision you're going to make is now. So you make the decision now. It doesn't matter what the future looks like. Obviously, you want to follow through. But for making the decision, it doesn't matter.
No. And also because we don't know. We can make an estimate. Of course we can all say like, in the past I failed, so I will fail in the future. Or in the past I had success, so I can do this in the future. Yeah, but the fact is that we don't know. And basing a decision on your future and already claiming like, oh, I can't do this. Maybe you can in the future, but never if you're going to say I can't. If you're going to say I can't do this, you're going to keep not being able to do that.
Yeah, and it is obviously the same decision, the same thing you're going to tell yourself about past experiences. I'm not going to be a slave about what happened in my past. I'm not going to be a slave about what other people think about me.
And actually, by saying that as a response, like I can't do that, you're actually already saying yes. You're already saying I'm gonna be a slave to other people, because you're, especially when you're grabbing the past experiences again. People make that decision probably because they couldn't in the past. So what they're doing is they're giving in. They're literally saying, I can't do that because it happened in the past, and in the future when that situation would happen again, it's not going to be any different.
No, and now we're going to take it maybe even a little bit deeper, because some people are traumatized.
Which are very deep-rooted thought patterns, of course.
Traumas are experiences in the past which still at this moment determine how you live your life.
And how you perceive reality.
So experiences in the past that at this moment in time still influence your life deeply and which you cannot control. So you have no power of control over your response, if it is an emotional response or a behavioral response. So again, it is a past experience which could be a lot of negativity from other people about you, and which still creates an emotion or behavior which you cannot control at this moment of time. That's a trauma. So obviously everything starts again with a decision on that you are the creator of your own life.
I love how you formulate these things, because you obviously, I think people don't realize how carefully every word in that previous sentence was chosen.
Yeah.
How, if I'm saying this correctly, word for word, something that happened in the past still controls how you perceive reality or act in the present today.
Without that you can control it.
Yeah,
you have no power of control.
Today.
Yes. And that is a trauma.
That's a trauma.
And everything starts again when I treat people for this kind of traumas. It starts with a decision that you're going to take back control to create your own life.
That's why I said you choose your words carefully, because you specifically said today you don't have control. But I think for a lot of people, this kind of stuff, especially traumas, which are indeed exactly what you say, at that moment in time, you don't have control. But I feel like a lot of people perceive that as if that also dictates the future.
Exactly.
You indeed don't have control right now. Nobody's gonna deny that. Yes, you can't maybe do certain things because of your trauma right now, but the question is that it's still going to control you in 10 years?
Yeah, and it will control you in the next 10 years if you do not start, or if you not decide today that you are going to be the creator of your own life, separately from what other people think about you.
Yeah, and trauma always gets created by an outside force. I couldn't think of a situation where you, completely isolated in a single room, would create trauma for yourself. Like a really deeply rooted trauma. How you could do that to yourself. One-to-one.
I can't.
That one-to-one, like you to yourself.
Not traumas.
So most of the time, it also directly relates to some form of outside source. May it be whatever it is. May it be your workspace. May it be other people directly, or a one-on-one situation, or the government, or an operation. It's always an outside source.
Yeah, and it is always the combination between the outside source and your vulnerability on that specific aspect.
On that specific moment of time.
In that time.
Because it can even be already that your vulnerability got less over the years, but the trauma is still there because the trauma got affected in the moment that you were still vulnerable.
Yeah, and it is obviously, from psychological perspective, extremely interesting to see how then the brain works. So when there is a trauma, when there is something happened in the past, and then it created a negative reaction inside of you, something negative emotion, etc. Experience was negative. Then the mind doesn't want to be confronted consciously about that situation again.
Pain avoiders, yeah.
So what happens then, there's going to be an automatic response without any control of your neocortex, an automatic response when something like that happens again. So
in the direction of fight, flight, fright.
Exactly. Yeah. So there is no control now, and maybe a lot of you also heard about all kind of intervention techniques. So as for example, EMDR.
EMDR, yeah.
And what EMDR does, EMDR is a method where you follow a finger or sounds, bipolar sounds, so left, right ear, or follow the finger, or tapping. That's also possible. Yeah. Sorry.
Thanks for the listeners at home that you just tapped the microphone as well.
The microphone. So
for the listeners at home, this is what we mean.
Yeah, tapping. But then, and what the EMDR does when there is a bipolar stimuli, then the automatic reaction gets detached. So they cut through the automatic reaction. And then there is a open field. So what EMDR does, you detach from the automatic reaction. And then there is an open field. Then there is the possibility to install a new mental mindset. Yeah. And that new mental mindset starts always with a decision.
Going back to that step that we were talking about, it always comes back to the decision: are you going to take control? And in this specific case, are you going to decide right now that you're not going to let other things, outside sources, decide your reality and
create your reality? Yes. And here I could ask everybody listening, from a number between 0 and 10, how could you rate yourself from being the creator of your own reality, when 0 is no control and 10 is maximum control? I'm very curious about how people who are listening here are viewing their capability to create their own reality.
And you can send it to us, your grade.
Please.
And with that, I would love it if you would include just 1. So for the people that gave themselves a 1 as a grade, even if you gave yourself a 9 as a grade, I don't believe there's going to be any 10s, because otherwise, why are you still listening after 44 minutes into a podcast that will help you improve yourself? Let's be honest. But even if you're a 9, try to think of one thing where you are still letting outside sources kind of influence you in a way, or dictate your reality on the subject, and just add that to it. Just one scenario. Yeah. Maybe it's at home, maybe it's in a friend's social situation, maybe it's with politics or with your work or whatever you do. Just one situation, add that to it, send it to us. We would love to see it.
Yeah, well, we would love to see it also, because we are now starting with the talking about in these podcasts about subjects people put in the comments or with your social media presence, etc. Yeah. But also this would be super cool to see what is that's bugging you, so we can like talk about it in this podcast, and I can maybe
we can
give
talk
the people
about
some hints and tips on how to handle this.
Depending on how many reactions we get, we can always look at maybe either dedicating another podcast to it and really going through it, or maybe we can decide to maybe have a specific segment of the podcast and say, for example, like every podcast, at the end of the podcast, we look at one comment and we go over that, or one email that people send in. Not like this, because now we have a subject for a podcast, but maybe say like at the end of every podcast, we tackle one submission from the previous podcast.
Yes.
One reaction that we got. We highlight that. We give like 5 minutes to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, do that. You can send it to, obviously, you can send it to, what did we do? Info at unlimitedpotentialprogram.com?
Yes.
So yeah, you can email it to info@unlimitedpotentialprogram.com, or you can, if you're watching it on YouTube, just put it in the comments of the YouTube video, where we will also get into it, and maybe even also already give you a little response in the YouTube comments. But you know,
yeah,
we'll get back to you. We'll rewrite everything down. We read everything that people send. So, what's the next step though? Because we already had 46 minutes right now. But we do want to obviously give people a little bit of a couple of steps to go through and not leave it open ended. So the first step is make the decision.
Yeah, let's conclude a little bit. So when you are very sensitive to the opinion of somebody else, or how you think somebody else thinks about you, realize yourself that you are doing this. So realize yourself that you are being influenced by a perception of reality. That's step one.
That's step one. Yeah.
That's obviously step one. Then realize that you are making it worse in your own mind, that you are making it real.
Not because something you're consciously doing, but just because you're giving it water, as we talked about before.
Exactly. But realize, be attentive that you do this.
Yeah.
That your mind does this. Like an accumulation of negativity. That's the second thing that happens. And then the third thing is that you realize that you are letting your behavior being controlled by that thought that you created in your own life. So the first step was to make a decision now. That you are the creator of your own reality.
The first step, you just said the first step. The first step was realizing.
That's the realizing. But if you are going to go to
the action plan.
The action plan.
Yeah, the fix. That's the first step of the fix.
Exactly.
is making the decision.
Making the decision. And if you've made that decision, you need to be aware every time again when you fail. So you need to be attentive every time again and write it down. So you need to be attentive every time again when you can't do what you decided to do. To create your own reality based on your own perception and not the perception of somebody else. And you need to make this for yourself a process, a conscious process every time again.
This is literally like working out. This is just, you're training this.
Exactly.
Every time you do it, and sometimes if you go to the gym as well, sometimes if you do, for example, a set on the bench press and you're trying to get a new PR for yourself, a new record, you also have moments where you drop that bar on your chest.
Yes.
All air gets compressed out of your lungs and you're like, oh no, I failed. Yeah,
no, but this is
next time maybe you can get it.
And this is a very good example. The air gets
pressed out of your lungs because the 60 kilogram weight drops
because that's also what happens when you're being confronted with a negative emotion.
The bar just drops on your chest.
Exactly.
It's that feeling as well.
It's the same feeling. So, but first you need to make it real for yourself that you are doing this. And I think that is enough to start with. So obviously there are more steps because obviously then you need to think about, okay, what do I want to create in my life? Not that you do not want to be suspendable to or sensitive to the opinion of others. No, you need to look at yourself and then create a life which really is built on your own talents, so that you can accept yourself the way you are. Yeah. So that's obviously the follow-up steps.
Yeah, and also like little things like how to recreate or like shape the thoughts that already are based in your head. Because, for example, this helps the person that sent the question. This is going to hopefully help I know for sure that it's going to help the person to, in the future, not do this anymore or do this less, but it didn't teach the person how to reshape the thing that already existed.
Yeah,
that's obviously next steps. All of that are next steps, but this is a good thing to start training.
I think this is what we didn't really cover in these 45 minutes is that he said, so I back away without saying why. So somebody has something negative in their mind, he thinks about him, then it creates a reality in his own mind, and then he backs away without saying why. So one of the other hints and tips is to just talk to that person, if you feel comfortable at some moment of time, to talk about that to that person. Okay, this is the feeling I get, and now I feel to back away.
For this person, it's the second step. Of course, it's the second step because they still have to first fix it for themselves, get their own mind in order, and then as a second step, they can. When they sorted everything out in their own head and
accepted
it and made the decision and realized why they do it and what's really where everything's coming from, and why their mind in some form agrees with it, and then they can take the second step and talk about that to the other person, obviously without pointing any fingers or whatever, because it's all within yourself.
Yeah, because without saying why, so you also need to look at. Why was it so difficult for me to confront another person with your own emotion? To confront the other person with your emotion. So there's no guilt. There's no you did something to me.
No, because you're only talking about how things happened within your own brain.
Yeah. So and that
there's nobody's fault. The only one to blame is yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And now you decided to be the creator of your own reality. So now you decided to be the creator of your own reality.
Yeah, and you're simply
so you
sharing.
Can easily share what happened inside of your emotion.
You're just sharing your thoughts. You're not blaming anyone because we just concluded that you're the only one to blame for your own reality, and you're just sharing that with someone. So it's not doing anything wrong at all. But we notice that these podcast episodes tend to get very long, and even when they get very long, just to conclude this a little bit, sometimes there might still be things that feel like we didn't cover everything, but that even because these podcast episodes are a small hour, you can't cover everything in an hour.
No.
Luckily, we do both. You have a professional psychologist practice. I am also a coach. So I also have one-on-one sessions with people. And of course, we have our program, which is currently only for people that also want to become a coach.
Yes.
But in the future, we're definitely looking into also individual courses later this year. We're looking at it. We're already doing a lot backstage, of course. But already, if you feel like this podcast isn't enough and you need more guidance or you need more help, there are options for you. You can always just send us an email. We are more than happy to also just have a quick chat with you to see which option fits you without charging you, of course. Just a quick chat or maybe an email back and forth and talk about what extra help you might need. And we have a lot of things where you can simply hire us or get the course that we do.
Or a short Zoom session. That's definitely possible.
So we do get that. And obviously we try to do things like this, like the podcast, completely for free because we think it's nice to get a lot of resources out there. But we also understand that some people might need some extra help. And we do offer that. Obviously, those things are not for free. But we gladly offer it to anybody. If you guys need any help, just send us a message. We can always look into what we can do more for you.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that concluded of this hour of going in depth into the first question of someone online that actually gave us one of these topics. Thank you very much for submitting that topic. Keep them coming because I think they're very, very, very valuable. We already have a couple of other ones still lined up. So yeah, thank you all for listening. It was a good session. Yeah, thank you for sparring as well. I had a lot of fun putting this a little bit back and forth.
Yeah, and again, thanks for sharing this question and keep them coming because we enjoyed a lot to talk about this.
Yeah,
and
we already know what's to come for the next subject. You don't know what we already have written down, but there's a lot of cool topics coming up.
Okay.
Thank you all for listening. See you on the next Unlimited Potential podcast. And the next week, we're going to do it in Dutch again. And the week after that, we're going to have another English one. Thank you all. Don't forget to, on Spotify or if you're on another platform, to save it, follow it, whatever you want to do. Maybe share it with friends if you think it could help someone. And like always,
dare to dream.
Dare to dream.